Hi everyone, welcome to the Ecosystem Innovation video series. Today we're going to talk about a slightly different topic. We've touched on RPA before, but we're going to look at a couple of interesting use cases with my friends from Deloitte. And this is it's quite a good analogy, right? Imagine if you're buying the latest, most powerful phone, but then you're only using it to text and make calls and check the time. Sounds a bit like my mum, to be honest. But you don't ever go to the app store and you don't really look into all of the power that is available to you. And I'm one of those people. I use some apps, but I know that there are a lot of apps that really could utilize the phone in a much better fashion. And procurement's kind of the same. Procurement really has the same kind of thing. And when we talk about SAP Ariba and procurement functions in general, not even talking about it from an SAP Ariba standpoint, you get a very powerful core technology. You have the core processes in place. But a lot of the time, there are processes that can still take longer than they should. And this is where RPA really comes into place. My friends at Deloitte have an RPA factory. And today I want to talk to the team to really give you an idea of a couple of use cases that I thought really made a really good difference and could help procurement teams in their day-to-day. Today, I'm talking to Nikhil Mohanan and also Vikram Shula from the Deloitte team. Guys, why don't you introduce yourselves and let's get talking about the great stuff that you've built.
Absolutely. Hey, everyone. My name is Vikram Shukla. I am a senior manager working in the SAP practice at Deloitte, and I also kind of lead the RPA function for the Deloitte team over here. Over to you, Nikhil.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Nikhil Mohanan. I'm a senior consultant in SAP S2P practice based out of Minneapolis office at Deloitte. Over the last year, along with Vic and an incredible team, we have been working on building an asset library, documenting use cases that complement SAP Ariba functionalities and act as enablers for our clients' business processes.
Brilliant. Thanks, guys. When we've spoken in the past, I thought that what was really powerful was the fact that you have so many of these use cases. And it was actually quite difficult to pick which ones we wanted to cover just as examples. But before we go into those, can you tell us a little bit around what was it that made you go down this track? What was it that you were seeing in your customer base, that you were getting from your prospects, that made you want to go out and build what you've built, which is already a very robust set of use cases?
Absolutely. No, that's a very good question, Mo. And just to set some context around what RPA is, right? So it's robotic process automation. I think the audience already knows that. But the business case that we were hearing from our clients and the need that was stemming from them was mostly around trying to save time on the redundant activities or the repetitive activities that they do day in and day out, right? So this is where they were asking us that our team is getting very tactical in doing some of the approval steps or, trying to figure out what the queue looks like for me and how do I process it on a day-to-day basis. Whereas I, as a procurement manager, want them to be getting more strategic and trying to enter into a better contract with suppliers or doing more strategic functions on a day-to-day basis, which they are unable to do because most of their time is being spent on doing these jobs which are repetitive and redundant to a certain extent, and trying to guide their team on what the right procurement process looks like, right? So that was where the need was coming from. And as you said, we do have a factory per se of sorts, wherein we have about more than 300 such implementation ready bots, which are available for our clients. And they are focused primarily on the procurement and purchasing issues, right? And of course, while we talk to our clients on a daily basis, more and more are being added all the time to this factory. But let me take a pause here and see if that answers your question. And Nikhil, if you have anything else to add to that.
Exactly. I just wanted to add, we also, because we have exposure working with so many different clients and different use cases, we felt that when we go over to a new client and help them with their transformation, we can be ahead of time and provide them. These are most common use cases that we see, and this can definitely act as enablers in your particular scenarios. And we have taken the time to build and test this out and maintain it in our factory. So that's one of our selling points.
The three examples that we will bring to the table today around the catalog item check, the sourcing bot, and what we are saying over there is that we have a process wherein we can speed up the decision making, as well as also make an intelligent choice for the users to help them guide through the process, right? So it's not just helping them go to their activities on a daily basis, but also providing them those intelligent inputs that makes the right decision for the company, right? And also avoid any inefficient workloads that we typically see on our buyers who are interacting with suppliers on such issues every day, and also their internal office functions.
Sure. And when we do that, then let's go into the scenarios so that the audience can see the difference that you have. I think why don't we start with catalog item check? If you can just take us through what catalog item check is and what it does. And then, if at all possible, if we can talk about the as-is process and then what the bot does to speed it up, that would be fantastic.
To start the process on how it looks on a daily basis for a non-RPA scenario, right? So in a typical day-to-day function, you would expect a buyer to go in and create a non-catalog requisition, right? And they will basically be routing it for validations, right? So they can basically be choosing items which they need to buy, but not knowing that a catalog does exist for that particular item, right? So that is where there is that submission of the requisition that happens, and then the back and forth between the buying organization and the requester trying to figure out what they're trying to buy and why they did not choose a catalog item that was already there, right? So this is where our RPA process kicks in, right? So the bot intelligently looks at all such submitted requisitions at a predefined time interval, and it actually does the matching against the supplier catalogs that already exist in the system, right? So what it provides to the requester at that point of time is catalog-based choices on what they could have chosen from different suppliers for their need. And then accordingly, those options enable the requester to look at the requisition again and then modify it based on what they are really looking for and which supplier's item fit their needs, and then be able to submit the requisition to the right approver and then go on from there, right? So that is where the step of the bot helps in terms of trying to provide them an intelligent input in a fast time frame, so that the approver, when they get the requisition, they are not spending time trying to figure out, what could have been for this match to happen, right? So that at that point becomes a decision for the approver as to whether they need to approve the requisition or not. So that's where the speeding up process happens. But Nikhil,
I've had some customers in the past where you've done an implementation and they put in a bias step into the workflow so that somebody's having to review each one, or they've got a procurement desk. I mean, some of what this is doing is removing that step because it's automating it and it's saying, well, actually, I can do that match. I can tell you that item is already available as a catalog item. And that just removes a lot of pain from the general, for users. I think one of the biggest challenges that we have is that it takes too long to approve something because there's so many steps and there's people checking this and checking that. This really makes it almost puts it into their hands without having intervention. Sorry.
Yes, Mo. Yeah. So from an overall process optimization perspective, we see that yes, the users who do not want to spend time searching for catalog items, they are intelligently recommended what is needed. A buyer, it takes the guesswork out of the buyer or the additional approvers in finding out a match. Third is it overall speeds up the process because when we have a negotiated catalog, usually it directly goes for the financial approval and goes out to the vendor, which can then reduce the procurement timeline. As well as while we do this, whenever we don't see catalog items, we can also constantly generate data points, which can then help for the next year planning on where the buyer should concentrate on negotiating and bring up more catalogized item as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah, that's absolutely true. So if we just walk through the flow, if we just talk about it from a manual perspective today, if the bot didn't exist, what are the steps that you would normally need to do? And then let's talk about the automated process flow as to how the bot actually impacts that process.
Okay, so yeah, I can take this one. So typically a day-to-day requisitioner, or I'm not a buyer, I might just need some item. The easiest way for me when I'm not familiar with the system is to go in and key in what I need and submit it as a free text item. And then it goes into an approval for a buyer or a procurement desk that we were discussing, where they are responsible to checking if we have a negotiated contract against this, picking and assigning a vendor, and then updating the requisition and submitting it for the financial approval if that's necessary, which then goes through the approval and gets issued to the vendor for delivery.
And what kind of, just to give people an idea, right? I remember couple of clients are popping up in my head where users would get frustrated because it was taking too long for that process to happen. And you know, you're talking days, depending on the volume of requests that were coming through to the buyer queue. How fast does a bot do this in comparison? Because that's the tangible benefit, right?
Yes, yeah. So I think the bots, I mean, depending on the volumes, but individual requisitions, bots have very quick turnaround time. They're able to do this in, I would say in certain scenarios, under a second or so, where they can go in, find a match intelligently, and then send it back to the requester. And the additional benefit when we go with the bot is also the development timelines, where a bot has to be developed. That's where we as a Deloitte are trying to be the differentiator, where we have these pre-built and tested out, so even the deployment timelines can be reduced.
Okay, yeah, brilliant. No, that one makes a lot of sense. I was interested in it again because I've personally seen that pain, either through implementations or in the post go live, where the users complain about it. And you know, it doesn't matter which solution you have, right? You're going to have this problem unless you have something like this in place. The next one that you guys were going to talk about was, I think, queue management. And this is also operational procurement, really fixing some of the headaches that they have or helping them manage the workload. Could we talk about that a little bit?
Right. So this is another solution that we have developed, which eliminates the need for a queue manager role. Now we see a lot of queues, a lot of requisitions and requests coming to the queue of the manager, and they have to basically spend time in trying to understand what this request is, and then who does it go to, and whether that's the right person to be handling that request or not. Right. So that's the kind of role or the RPA process that kicks in. It basically reviews the items in the queue for both the sourcing and the AP teams, right? So we do see a lot of sourcing requests being created at the clients, as well as payment requests being submitted to the AP teams, right? And they are trying to figure out if this category is being handled by what manager and where should it go to, right? So those kind of things is where this bot comes in, right? And it intelligently assigns items to the specific users based on the criteria we define and we load into the tool, right? So that's where the reassignment happens, right? And depending on what volumes are coming in and how much workload a user has, it also intelligently distributes the workload amongst the team members, right? And that is where we see the impact of that, wherein there is no need to manually manage the queue from a user standpoint. It reduces any processing delays, right? And it is, from our perspective, we provide the flexibility to the clients in trying to determine and define what criteria is to be loaded into the system and how the bot functions from there, right? So that is exactly where some of the benefits come into the picture.
Yeah.
Yep. And Vic, you mentioned about workload balance and everything, and I could just think of like this can have multiple use cases. For example, Ariba has, or most of the other tools have a very strong workflow engine where we can customize things, but then we need a dedicated workflow admin to handle in case of failures. So whereas this bot could have another use case where the bot can look at all the failed assignments and then look at the workloads and distribute it evenly among different buyers based on their workload. And so there are, multiple implementations that we could leverage this one for.
How does it understand where to put it into the queue? Is there some intelligence that's built around that allows it to do that?
Again, we go to the clients, as we were saying in the previous bot, right? With a predefined and pre-created bot, and then we can tailor it to the client's need and say, okay, this is where you see most of your queues or the requests coming into, and that is where we see the bottleneck. So this is where how we will define your criteria for you, and then make it work for a 2-3 month period. And then if you need to revisit that at the end of that time, we can always do that. So there is a lot of flexibility around it. We can start off at a level and then obviously improvise from there going forward.
That's a good segue into the next one, because I have the whole sourcing RFX process of being able to, especially when we start talking about S4HANA and even Ariba, where you get sourcing requests and how they are managed. So when I first saw Sourcing Assistant, I thought, yeah, this would be a good one to talk about because it's one that you commonly hear about.
Yeah, so the more as you segregated, so this is more towards an integrated scenario where we have an S4HANA or an external system integrated with SAP Ariba, where we receive sourcing requests from an external system, and Ariba has these core technologies or core processes which allow us to convert it into a project, collaborate within your organization, as well as collaborate with suppliers through sourcing events, and then negotiate a contract and then award a supplier particularly. So our intent with this was essentially we have the core technology. Now, how can we help sourcing managers or buyers nudge the process along? So we receive a sourcing request, and instead of it waiting in a queue for someone to come and take it ahead, the bot will go in whenever a new request comes in, creates the project, and trigger the initial collaboration tasks that all are needed so that everyone can start working on their task. And the same way, when some decisions are completed at some level, the bot can come in and publish an event that can be sent out to the suppliers. So the intent here is that we nudge the process, complement the Ariba functionality, meanwhile letting the buyers and sourcing managers spend their time strategically where they need to, rather than taking the process ahead or step by step. And then, yes, of course, it's integrated scenario. So in case there are any, sourcing request cancellations and everything, the bot also goes back and updates the status in S4HANA so that the data is in sync for later analysis and there are no other additional manual inputs required.
And it sends.
Yeah, and just to add.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to add that it does seem like this is only for sourcing requests, but of late we are getting a lot of requests from our clients around code automation as well. Yeah. So that is another process which originates in your S4 system and then routes over into Ariba. Mm-hmm. And that is where we are working as a team to enhance this solution for it to work with the quote automation scenario as well as within guided sourcing, right? So this is another feature that was released by the Ariba team recently, and that's where our team is constantly vying to update our bots in a certain way where it keeps up with the market and the technologies that are shaping our clients, right? So that is another thing that we do a lot of in Deloitte.
Yeah, I think, I mean, the new guided sourcing UX that Ariba have put out there certainly helps a user understand the different steps and follows them across, you know, so that they can complete the request in a much easier fashion. But I think the bot still takes some of those areas where I like the nudging idea, where it's able to say, well, okay, you've done this bit, actually, I can do this bit for you. And then it sends a notification to say, right, I've got to this stage, now you've got to do this. And the fact that it's nudging you across just makes the whole process more efficient. And I mean, one of the things that I also liked is it isn't just a case of nudging, it's the ability to interpret certain things. So it can interpret emails, right? And so I think that's the bit that I'm really keen for people to understand, is that the bots are also built with intelligence. It's not just a case of running a process, move on to the next. It's interpreting, understanding, using intelligence to then make a decision to nudge it across.
It really does help in speeding up the process. And again, we hear a lot of time from the sourcing team users that the tasks themselves are cumbersome and there are too many activities to be done. But that is where this bot helps in speeding up the entire end-to-end process.
That's great. Thank you for that. I know those were the scenarios that we were going to just quickly cover to give some context, but where do you see this going, right? I mean, in procurement, everybody's looking for more innovation today. They're looking for ways and means of making the general process more efficient, either through innovative technology that is kind of new technology, whether you look at that from a best of breed perspective or not. But from a Deloitte perspective, from what you're seeing in the market and what you've built with this RPA side of things, where are you going to take it next, and where do you think it will go?
That's a great question, Mo. And this is where we are working closely with our clients, right? We hear from our wide client base on a daily basis on areas that they need us to work on, right? Or improve on the existing parts, right? So that is where we are constantly looking to update our catalog for all the bot solutions that we have. And again, our team, which is dedicated, is also working on the platforms, right? For example, recently or about a year ago, the SAP RPA platform came into existence, right? And that is where we are working closely with our team members, trying to upskill them and also make sure that most of our bots are also available on any platform that the client asks for, right? So from a perspective of making sure that we are market ready and we are able to hit the ground running at our clients, we are constantly doing that step over there. But Nikhil, anything else to add to that?
No, I think I would completely agree. So you're pretty much covered. So yeah, we are trying to be ahead of time, and yes, technology keeps changing. So we are trying to be innovative and ahead of it. The features that we built in now could be solved in a different way in future. So we want to be ahead of it and try to add more value to our clients.
Sure. No, that's great. So look, I think that's been a great overview. I think you have some links and a video as well over the process. I'll put links to all of that below so that people can check it out. If there's any additional information that any of the viewers want, you can reach out to either Nikhil or Vic or reach out to myself. But I think beyond that, really, guys, thank you for your time again. It's been a great overview. I'd love to do some more around this. And the viewers, if there are particular scenarios that you would like us to run or talk about, do let us know. But in the meantime, again, do like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'm sure I'll be back with Nikhil and Vic again. Guys, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. And yeah, hopefully see you again soon.
Yeah, thank you, Mo.
Thank you, Mo.
Thank you.
Everyone.